My name is Alberto Heide. I don't feel comfortable telling blind stories. No, what I do. I could tell you some stories about being blind, some good, some dark places, but how far to go? I could think of some. But is anyone really interested in that? Like I said, I don't feel comfortable telling my stories. Keep in mind that what I'm about to share is personal, and I've never spoken. Perhaps I could tell you as my muse in an attic and share. Let me share an urban legend, and then we'll go from there. In the late 1960s, researchers did an experiment. It was called the 5 monkeys experiment. In this experiment, researchers had a large cage, and in the cage was a ladder at the center, and hanging just above the ladder hung a single banana. Now these researchers put 5 monkeys that they had starved for several days in this cage. When the monkeys saw the banana, they raced up the ladder to get the banana because of their hunger. And when the monkeys did this, the researchers sprayed them with a hose of freezing cold water until the monkeys stopped going after the banana. After some time, the monkeys went after the banana again, and again the researchers sprayed them with a hose of freezing cold water until the monkeys stopped going after the banana. After a while, the monkeys gave up and stopped going after the banana. Observing this, the researchers removed one of the sprayed monkeys and replaced it with a fresh one. And this fresh monkey scrambled up the ladder to get the banana. The other 4 monkeys, seeing this, raced after that monkey, clawing, screaming, scratching, and biting it for fear of being sprayed, even though the researchers didn't spray them at this time. Eventually, the fresh monkey, beaten and battered, stopped going after the banana. The researchers then replaced one of the original sprayed monkeys with another new fresh monkey, and you guessed it, that monkey went after the banana. The original sprayed monkeys clawed and scratched it, and the monkey that had been beaten up by the sprayed monkeys scratched it as well. You do see where this is going, right? Eventually, the researchers replaced all of the sprayed monkeys with unsprayed monkeys, one at a time, and each in its turn was clawed, scratched, and bitten. And so these new 5 monkeys did this and never knew why. And whenever the researchers replaced these monkeys, one at a time, they each got their submissive punishment by the other monkeys. If it was possible to ask these monkeys why they beat up on all those who attempted to climb the ladder, their most likely answer would be, I don't know, that's just how things are done around here. I learned about this story when I was learning Braille, and it was a story that has stuck with me ever since then. I guess I'm looking for the banana, reaching for the banana. The banana is a metaphor for my fully engaged life. So my rhetorical question is, why can't blind people do whatever they want to do? I was diagnosed early in my life, legally blind. I didn't really understand this at the time. Even though I had trouble seeing, I never thought that was a problem. I'm an adventurer. Adventure finds me, it invites me. And so, like I said, I approach things with that vigor. Grade 2, and I'm surprised when my teacher calls my name and tells me that I need to go with this gentleman who was standing in the doorway of my classroom waiting for me. I don't know who this guy is. He seems friendly enough. It's strange to me when I'm a point of focus by the other students who are all very curious. I go with this guy and we head down the hall, heading out of the school. He's talking to me about why he's here. He's here to teach me how to use a mobility cane. We head out of the school to a walkway, and along the walkway is some grass. This walkway leads past the window of my class. It is a beautiful summer day, so sunny, so clear out, and the air smells fresh and clean. He's trying to be friendly and encouraging. He begins to show me how to use the cane. The first thing he shows me is called trailing, where I tap the cane on the walkway, and I tap the cane on the grass. Tap the cane on the walkway, tap the cane on the grass. A rhythmical pattern as I walk. Not a big deal. I can do this, not a problem. The kids from my class are watching. The teacher wants to get on with the lesson, but the students can see that I'm using a cane. The window is open, and I can hear them, and I can hear the teacher speaking to them. This guy and I would go back to the beginning of the walkway, and this time he wants me to try doing it with a blindfold on. It makes a papery sound as he places it over my eyes and face, and I can feel the elastic snuggly across the back of my head. I do the trailing, but this time it's more mechanical. He congratulates me on how well I'm doing and how quickly I'm learning how to use the cane. And he gives me the cane to keep. Later that day, I show off the cane to my brother and sister. I notice when I tap the cane on the road, I can see a spark. It is a flat-tipped metal cane that shoots sparks against the gray of the road. The sparks shoot forward as I tap harder and harder until the tip pops right off. A few days later, this guy comes to my home to do some more mobility training. I tell him I broke the cane. He says, it isn't a problem. He gives me a brand new cane, which I never use again after that lesson. I never used a cane during that period of my life because the kids at school who saw me were all very curious about my eyesight and the cane. The teacher starts making decisions about what I can do or not, to the point where I'm not able to take part in all the things the other kids take part in. After some time, this focus is forgotten, but I always have to struggle to find a way to make my school life work for me so that I could be like every other kid without having that focus of what I can't do. Halloween. I'm about 8 years old, and it's the first time my brother, sister, and I are allowed to go trick-or-treating on our own without some of the other neighborhood kids. We're only allowed to go around the block and on both sides of the street. It is cold. I have to wear my regular clothes under my costume. It is a terrible costume. It's something I don't want to wear. I want to dress up as a cowboy, but my mother instead decides to get me this plastic mask and a gown that reminds me of the gowns that butchers might wear. There's a long yellow plastic gown, and the print on the gown is a picture of a robot that resembles the mask that I'm wearing. I'm disappointed with this costume. I hate this costume. I'm embarrassed to wear this costume, but I'm excited to go trick-or-treating. We are all excited to go trick-or-treating. We meet up with our neighborhood friends, and without skipping a beat, they run to the first house of the night. I try to keep up, but I have trouble keeping up, but it's because it's so dark. But I know the neighborhood, and I can tell where the other kids are going by their shouts and screams, and going to the next house, and the next house, and so on. Every time I catch up, they're leaving the house that they just got treats from. I, being the last to get treats, become farther and farther behind, coming to the houses just before the people of those houses close their doors. I'm so uncomfortable. But I persevere because I want to trick or treat like the other kids. At some point I succumb to the fact that I'm just not going to be able to catch up to them. Trying to maneuver between shadowy masses of parked cars, bumping into them on more than one occasion. And if I'm fortunate enough, the overhead streetlights reflect off their bumpers or whatever is shiny. And thus I can tell more easily that my cars are there. I don't want to run through the yards like my friends are doing. These are places of uncertainty, trees and other potential obstacles that are unknown, so I don't risk that. I'm in a constant state of anxiety, feeling lost and behind and left out, but still insisting on taking part. At one point I do run through a yard just like the other kids. I can feel the wet grass under my shoes as I'm catching up to them. When did I catch up to them? They're excited. They're doing their own thing, and I'm trying to take in the excitement the way that they are. Anyways, after that house, they take off as always. And I want them to wait for me, but with their chatter and shouts, they don't hear me. They dart through the yard a different way and they run across the street. I would dart as well, but they've gone a different way. They seem to know where they're going, and I follow. I figure everything is okay with where I'm heading. I'm running through the grass, and suddenly I'm running through soft dirt, sinking into the earth with every step. Oh God, I think, I'm running through a front garden? Things are getting worse as I clumsily make my way, ripping through the flowers as I'm trying to pass through to get to the road where I'd be safe and away. There's busted to a small wire fence that borders the garden. It rips out of the ground, and I break through. The carnage and havoc caused me a great deal of grief. I can't just run through this yard without a problem, without incident, that there has to be this. My shoes are muddy, my pants are dirty, and I sink into myself. I wasn't going to be able to trick or treat like the others. I do go from house to house, but I do it in a methodical way. I walk along the road, and if I notice a driveway, I approach it, and if the front light is on, I approach the door. Most of the houses I go to, I'm on my own. Some of the houses I go to, there are other groups of kids from nearby neighborhoods I become a part of for a short while. Eventually my friends are done and they're at their homes. I finish what I can do and I go home. My brother and sister are looking at their candy, pouring it on the floor. I'm very quiet and sullen. I have candy too, but I don't have as much. I learn that I'm going to have to try to maneuver through these kinds of events so that I can be able to be a part of these times, being very conscious of how I'm going to survive without taking a loss, to save my emotional self. And I did. These kinds of events facilitated a way for me to make things work in my life. In the summers, I found adventure. I'm about 12 years old when I get this bike, a red BMX. I love this bike. It has Red Baron written on the frame. It's such a beautiful bike. I love that bike. When I think about that bike, that bike was alive. It's such a beautiful bike. I lean it up against the pole and I gaze at it. I look at it as best I can with my limited vision. I look at the whole thing. I look at the handles, the handbrakes, I look at the parts that are chrome, the parts that are red, the red plastic seat, I look at the tires with the thick with tread. Whenever I take that bike out for a ride, I can hear the buzz of the tread running on the road. I love it. I pedal it like the devil. I can't state that enough. I really love this bike. Whenever I take that bike out for a ride and bring it back home, I get a bucket of water and a cloth and I wash the bike. I make sure it's clean and pristine. People say that I ride so fast. I never think about the fact that I can't see well. This one fantastic time, I ride the bike down this one road I know about but never travel, because this road leads to a hill. In fact, it leads to two hills. In the middle of the two hills is a flat area for a railroad track. These hills are long and steep. As I come to the hill, I let the momentum of the bike make the approach. There's a police officer who has his car parked at the side of the crest of the hill. I never mind him because I don't know that he's a cop until later. I come to the hill, and the cop runs across the road to try to stop me. I steer around him, and I start to pedal a little to get away from him. When I come to the crest of the hill, the feeling is so overwhelming of what is to come, like a tidal wave. We're coming to the moon in a rocket ship with awe. Passing over the crest, I begin my speedy descent. I accelerate rapidly. The wind whistles in my ears and through my hair. The car is behind me, which increases my adrenaline. I don't realize, I know now that he's a cop because he let the siren sound for a second. Ignoring this, without pedaling, I let gravity and the hill take over. I'm gaining more and more speed. I can hear the buzz of the tires, and my glasses start bouncing up and down my face due to the wind. They're sure to fall off. Speeding down the hill, I come to that landing for the railroad track, trying to keep control of the bike. The car is still behind me. At the crest of the second hill, without effort, I jump with the bike. I'm flying in the air with the Red Baron, weightless. Woo! In a moment, without thinking, I pedal once, twice, 3 times in the hopes of a good landing without a terrible accident. The back tire touches down, the rest of the bike touches down with no loss of speed. My glasses are on the tip of my nose, but I don't dare let go of the handles. The cop car is not as close behind at this time. I don't think cops can fly. Oink. I continue down the second hill with great speed. At the bottom of the hill, it veers right. I go left into a grassy meadow. Coming to the meadow, I level out, and the grass slows me down. When I lose momentum, I begin to pedal, and I come upon a trail, and I run into a large stone embedded in that trail. And funny enough, I almost lose control of the bike. I regain control and continue on. There have been a few bikes since, but nothing compares to the Red Baron, and I'm sure I could still ride like the devil. Telephone poles and fire hydrants beware. When I finally use my cane, it is no small event for me to confront having to use the cane so I can survive this perilous adventure called life. I, in my late 30s, am going through the motions of existence with greater and greater stress, of coming up with tricks, and not often able to be relaxed or be idle. I know that if I use the cane, people will make decisions about me and for me, that their conversation and judgment will be blinded by my blindness, made obvious by the use of the cane. I would be a Christmas tree, visible by not seeing me. I feel that my independence would be hamstringed for my own good. I don't realize at this time what a saving grace the cane would actually be. I wrestle with this. I need to take the bus. I stare at the cane for a moment as it leans next to the door of my own, and I grab it like ripping a Band-Aid off my skin and head off to a new world. I know how to use the cane, but I feel awkward, like eyes are on me. I board the bus when it arrives, never letting go of that awkwardness. People do look at me, I'm certain, not just because I'm devastatingly handsome. I know that I'm truly blind. In the months and years since, I do recover somewhat. I relax now as I move with the cane, as though it is another appendage of my body. Most of the time, I move through the cane, extroverting through it, and with the skills I've developed in my life, I walk with grace and confidence. Head up and shoulders back, even in the pitch of darkness and uncertainty. And as I move, I gain certainty in the environment for the most part. In places that I know well, I cruise without concern. Blindness is a part of my experience. Basically, it's me deciding that I can do what I want, regardless of the rules, or someone telling me whether I can or can't. Even if I take a loss, I don't take the loss too long, until I go after another banana. Blindness is not my problem. Thank you.
Yeah. All good. Thank you again, everybody. Have a nice evening.